Welcome to the Craig and Greg Show, presented by Maximize Leadership. Now, here are Craig Owens and Greg Harris.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Craig and Greg Show. I'm Craig, sitting alongside of dapper Greg. You look really good.
Thank you very much. You washed up pretty good yourself.
Yeah, every once in a while, believe it or not,
Oh, boy.
there was a day where you and I look like this, like every day.
Every day.
This is how we went to the office every day.
Put together, ready to seize the day.
Now I don't know. Are we still put together?
Sometimes it's just for funerals.
Yeah, that's where we're starting to get to that age.
Oh, stop. Don't look at the real bits.
One of my favorite things, though, is every once in a while we had the Jack Nicklaus seats at the CBA team. We had a CBA team here in West Michigan called the Grand Rapids Hoops, and we'd get those tickets where we were right on the floor next to the players, and we would dress up like this.
You would.
And people, like, they could not figure out, like, who are those guys down there with the suits?
Are they from the NBA?
Are they retired players? Are they injured players? Are they GMs? Are they,
Right. Are they recruiting from Poland or Hungary's national team?
So that was kind of fun. It's so I don't know what you guys think about us dressed like this, but it's kind of interesting the way some people think when they see somebody dressed that way. They're like, wow. But we just thought we would spice it up for you a little bit.
Throw them a curve.
That's right. So, Greg, you and I have both gone through the process of writing some books. And in fact, we were just talking about a little bit ago that it's once you get into it, like you're brainstorming, and once you actually get into it, how quickly the process flows because you've been thinking about it, you've been working on it. And for you and I, we have a lot of just in our own life, a pretty good reservoir of experiences that we've been through. And so, when you read any one of our books, the stories that we're talking about in there, a lot of them are the ones that we've actually walked through.
Sure.
And so I wanted us to take some time and kind of pull some things out. So in this episode and in our next episode, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things in our books. And we'll have links in the show notes if you want to check out these books a little bit more. We'll have some links there for you. But there's one thing that I probably have gotten more interest in my book, Shepherd Leadership, in one spot that it was 5 chapters in the book that I didn't intend to write all 5 of them. I intended that to be one chapter about a leader's health. And it was my editor that said, you need to expand on this a little bit. And so I expanded and made it 2 chapters. And she said, no, I think we need to dive down a little deeper on this part. And so I said, oh, so this is what you're looking for. And then the 1 chapter idea ended up becoming 5 chapters. But from your perspective and from your experience, why is it that you think that people would be so surprised, taken aback, like that a leadership book, these 5 chapters are talking about a leader's health? Why would that take people back? Why would they be so surprised that I'm talking about a leader being a healthy person?
I didn't get credit for writing the book. I did go through every chapter with you when you sent it to me. I think what you encapsulated was if you're not doing well yourself, it's tough to be well as a leader for others. And that's kind of the equation, right? We're in leadership for others, not in it for ourselves. Hence why it's called Shepherd. Right. I think part of it for most of us is we don't take a quick assessment. Like you schedule to have a dental cleaning, you schedule your annual physical, certain age points, you have to do certain tests that we won't speak on. We want to keep it PG. But I think at those points, people are assessing because they're paying someone to do it. They've committed to, but really there is no way for a leader to do that unless they do it themselves. There's no check-in.
Sure.
And I think you kind of started with that 1 chapter thinking, yeah, be a shepherd leader, make sure you're healthy. And I think your editor really saw potentially maybe even another book in the health part, which is it's a big subject. But I think when you talk about healthy, we'll get to specifically what areas, but there are so many aspects of a leader's health. And that I think translates also to a culture of health.
Absolutely.
So run with that. When you were kind of writing the first one, why did you think it was just going to be a short one?
Yeah. Well, I guess because I've always been pretty self-analytical, and I guess maybe my assumption was that a lot of people would do that same kind of thing. But like you said, I think that maybe some people needed, well, give me some checklists or give me some places to start. And to be honest with you, like where I started from is just one verse in the Bible. So, Luke, here's a little trivia question that you could win sometime if you ask somebody. So don't tell anybody this. If you ask somebody who wrote more of the New Testament than anybody else, most people immediately go, "Oh, the Apostle Paul," but it's actually Luke wrote more words in the New Testament than anybody else did, and he is such a premier historian but he identifies the things that are the most important. And so we got Luke tells the story about Jesus being born. We got a couple of verses when he's around age 12 and his parents go to Jerusalem. And then we know nothing until age 30 except for one verse. And it says this: Jesus grew in wisdom, in stature, in favor with God, and in favor with men. The
last one's the key.
Right.
Because you're a shepherd of fellows.
Of people.
Right?
But see, what surprised me about that was I would have, so if you're drawing that as a pyramid, if you're thinking of it as a pyramid, and it's building up, I would put the pinnacle as the phrase "in favor with God."
Right.
But the bottom line is, how do you really know what's going on inside me and how healthy I am until I'm like this? Somebody jostles me. Then we know, oh, yeah, there's some health or there's some unhealthiness that's there. So that's what kind of started the whole process, was me looking at the life of Jesus, and we can encapsulate it in one verse, but man, there's so much to pull out of there.
I think your comment about Luke and words, and yet he spanned 18 years and didn't do many words.
Right.
And yet probably wrote the most post 30.
Right.
And of course, Paul's letters were letters.
Right.
They weren't books, but fascinating what they all come from, isn't it? Just their different angles. And I think let's start with maybe what you thought was the top and what you ended up being the top. So the top assumption was what? Health.
So my top assumption would have been, I thought, spiritual health. Because if you're talking about Jesus, you say, oh, well, he's going to demonstrate for us this godliness. Well, he did, but not in the way that, and I think this is why so many people pushed back on him. It wasn't in the way that they thought that it was supposed to be. But if you go, it starts off at the very beginning that he grew in wisdom. There was, you and I did an episode a while ago that we called it arrogance and ignorance, how those two go together. So that tells me if Jesus is growing in wisdom, that's telling me that he's saying, I don't have all, I need to put some more stuff in here. I need to process this. I need to work this thing out. And, what would make us as earthly leaders think that, oh yeah, I got it. That's I think where it has to start. And that's, again, I think for me, where it became very self-confrontive. I'd be reading a book and go, boy, they said this. I wonder how am I doing on that part in my life?
See, but you have always done that as long as I've known you, 3 decades plus. Self-assessment. Am I missing the point? Do I need to get better at this? And that's where wisdom comes in. Knowledge with some time or experience produces the wisdom.
Right.
When you were looking at spirituality, what really would you have put in its place if they told you spirituality wasn't number one?
Boy, that's hard because, I think that wisdom is one thing.
Right.
But then the next level up is the physical health. He grew in stature, so he's growing in physical health. It's really hard to, keep your mind focused if you're not physically healthy. And it's hard to, anybody watching this that's in leadership, physically how draining it is to be in the trenches and be serving people. And so if you don't have the physical health, you're not around to be able to dispense wisdom or to grow your own wisdom. So I don't know what I'd put in there because it's you start to go, it's all interrelated. You pull one of those things out and the whole thing falls apart.
I think that's the biggest lesson in this and what Luke wrote and how you put it in your book for pastor, or for anyone in leadership,
Right.
really. What did you find ended up kind of rising to the top as the most effective, healthy focus for a leader?
Well, I think it really comes down to, so you kind of fool us here because your cup says Mountain Dew on the outside, but those of us here in the Maximize studio know that there's no Mountain Dew in there right now.
Yeah. What's in there?
But water.
Water,
Right.
just water, and a little ice.
I wouldn't know it until you take off the lid and it comes out, right? I don't know what's in there until you could tell me it's water, or you could tell me it's Mountain Dew. I don't really know.
Yeah.
So I think that is the thing for leaders. We have to be, when we get bumped, when what's inside of us spills out, that is the real indication of what's there. Mm-hmm. We can't excuse it by saying, "Oh, that was a Freudian slip, just a slip of the tongue. I didn't really mean that," or "I was awfully tired, and so I just
excuse me for that."
But again, let's go back to Jesus. When you read through the Gospels, you never read about him saying to somebody, "Hey, my bad, I misspoke there. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings for being insensitive to you." You never see that with him. So his relationship with people, the way he interacted with people, showed you what was really on the inside. On the outside, and this is where I think a lot of leaders focus, they want it to look good on the outside.
Nice colors.
Yep. And they maybe have read the leadership books and they know the catchphrases that they're supposed to use.
Sure.
They know I read the sandwich. I'm supposed to give you a compliment and then something we're going to correct and then another compliment. I'm going to sandwich those. I read that, and so I know that. And people that you're sitting down with, they go, "Okay,
just get to the point.
We know you're just doing this from the book. You don't really mean the compliments that you're saying. You're just doing it because they can tell."
You always say that compliment.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where we have to be very honest with ourselves when something spills out of our life.
Good point.
And we say, "Oh, I don't like that." Well, there's something that needs to be addressed then.
Yeah, yeah. Let's jump out a little bit farther. So when someone has a relationship snafu, it's so easy to go spiritual.
Sure.
It's very easy to go physical. Or we put up other mechanisms, psychological mechanisms, boundaries, those kind of things. It sort of makes sense because most people will go through life with regrets on what? Relationships.
Yeah.
Things that they were gypped on, they regret, they wish they had fixed, they corrected, wish they didn't contribute to this.
Yep.
It kind of makes sense once you take a step back, but obviously you were smart enough to write the book and have 5 chapters on it. What would be one or two really good nuggets for leaders listening about healthy relationships that you feel are biblical and wise?
Sure. Well, okay, I'll put it this way. And we've talked about this before, that a leader has to make time to care for themselves.
Yeah.
You're not going to get healthy automatically. You're not going to get healthy just because you want to get healthy. You got to make changes. So one of the things that I talk about in the book, I borrowed the grid that Stephen Covey came up with about things that are urgent and important. And the 2 things that I want to always focus on is quadrant 4 in Covey's setup is things that are not urgent. They don't have a deadline on it, and they're not important either. It's not going to change the mission of my life.
True.
It's not going to change the mission of the organization that I'm leading.
Yeah.
The other quadrant is quadrant 2. These are things that are also not urgent. They don't have a deadline set to them. So you're going to have to set your own deadline, but they are important. You can only make time for quadrant 2 by getting rid of things that are in quadrant 4. And so leaders need to sit there. They need to take some time and look at their day and say, where are my time wasters? And most time is wasted just in little minutes. It's not usually huge chunks. It's little minutes here and there, but they add up.
Yeah.
When I can take that time and say, I'm going to put it into caring for myself. And again, that's not selfish. Okay. If you care for yourself, you're going to be a better shepherd for other people. So what can I do to build my wisdom?
Yeah.
What can I do to strengthen my emotions? What can I do to strengthen my physical body? Because if I strengthen those, if those three areas get healthy, I think the relationship part just is the fruit of all of those other things.
Let's dive in a little bit on healthy relationships and how they affect the other person, not us, the leader. We're there to serve, hence the name of the book.
Right.
But also for your company. How does focusing on the relationship health of yourself and with others, where would you rate that value or power?
Well, again, it's a simple phrase of I can't give to other people what I don't have myself.
Yeah.
Somebody comes up to me and says, it's a good friend, and they're like, I don't have my wallet. I need $20 just to put gas in my tank. And I go, man, I would help you at the drop of a hat, but I don't have $20. I can't give what I don't have.
Right.
So that's the reason why I want to put this stuff in me, because leaders are constantly saying, what do you need? And I need to have something to give you.
Right.
So I need to say, I'm reading this book, or I'm taking this time to just take care of my physical body, or to my spiritual health. I'm taking this time so that I have something to give to other people. That needs to be my reminder all the time. So when I don't feel like exercising, I don't feel like confronting myself on my poor behavior, I have to say, wait a minute, I'm doing this so that I have something to give to other people on the team.
Do we want to clarify the healthy relationship element of a leader isn't about relationship with God, it is with fellow humans?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's chat a little bit about like transparency, genuineness, depth, as we work on leadership relationships and getting them healthier or bringing them back in the fold. What would you suggest for the audience to kind of be aware of, what to look for?
Well, first of all, on the negative side, I'd look for people that try to maybe not make eye contact with you when you walk in the room.
Okay.
The people that are saying, "Oh man, here they come. Here comes my leader. Let me pretend like I'm busy here. So maybe I'm going to pick up my phone, and so maybe." If you have that kind of response, or if you're saying, hey, Greg, can you step into my office can chat for a second, and you see somebody coming into the office with sweat beads popping out on their forehead, wow, that's what they think of me when they're coming in here. That's not a them problem. That's a you problem. So you need to address that. I think that's one of the first things we need to look at changing. The other thing then is I need to make sure that on the positive side, that what I'm coming to people saying, I don't want to have to keep on solving. I'm not here to solve problems for you. Right. I'm here to empower you to solve the problem yourself. I want to get to a spot where you don't need to come to me anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want you to soar on your own. And so that's what we need to be watching for on the positive side, is that people are coming to us with new problems, new situations, saying, we need your wisdom. We need you to jump in here. Can you give us some perspective on this? But they're not coming back to you, hey, we're stuck on this same thing again. Or like, well, we don't want to fix it. You fix it. We're scared to try to fix it. We don't want that either. Right. So I think those are the two sides that we need to look at with our people, that's telling us our level of healthy leadership relationship with them, that they want to be in relationship with us, and the relationship is growing, and because we're seeing the other person grow.
Right. Where would you place the marker in the spectrum? Why we would rather work on something physical or do something spiritual and avoid relational?
I think I go back to this again. It's really easy it looks shiny and
it is kind of
cool,
shiny,
cool,
like a bass boat, a bass boat.
Yeah, it's so it looks really good on the outside, and that's easy to measure. Oh. How do you measure the quality of a relationship?
Okay, this is not even on our script, but this is a word that I have often struggled with, maybe churchies, is discipleship.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, discipleship. So is it this way? And I think for leaders, it's for sure this way, but it might be this way, right? Mm-hmm. I wonder what we could do to kind of get rid of that taboo or that foible of, relationships are hard.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but isn't that the fruit
Right.
of your spirituality, your physical wellness, et cetera, wisdom?
No, I mean, it's supposed to be maturing, right?
I would think so.
You know, I tell you, something that is really confronting for me is if you go to 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul, it's called the great love chapter. You know, love is patient, love is kind. Yeah. Okay, so let me just take that first one. Love is patient. How does it sound if I replace the word love with my name? How does it sound to my own ears if I say Craig is patient? If I were to say that to the other people on my team, would they snicker? Or would they go, yeah, actually, he is.
Some are pretty good with eye rolls.
Right. Yes, exactly. So, but I want to be able to say, not only am I patient, I want to be able to say I'm more patient now than I was a year ago.
Right.
So, but that's really hard to measure, because more patient than what? I have to be, I have to just look at myself, because it's really easy for me to say, well, I'm doing better than that person is. Because I'm going to find the person. Yeah, that's why we got him off the screen.
Oh, wow,
because I'm going to look for the person that is totally dropping the ball in an area and go, well, at least I'm not as bad as they are.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and then by comparison, I look really good. No, am I more patient than I was before? Am I more kind than I was before? Am I more forgiving than I was before?
On relationships, is there one thing that you have found in yourself or others, don't say anything if it's me, that really works to improve relationships, healthy relationships?
TIME.
So that's it for today, folks.
Right. I mean, it's, you know, we talked a couple episodes ago about people looking for shortcuts.
Yeah.
You know, in developing ourselves and developing relationships, there's no shortcuts. It's just, you have to roll up your sleeves. I love that C.S. Lewis talked about agape love, that Greek word that means I'm totally focused on the other person. It's selfless, because I'm not even thinking about myself. He said a lot of people think of love, this is C.S. Lewis, as evening gowns and tuxedos and candelabras. Yeah. And he said agape love is really like work clothes and a mop bucket. But that's, if you think about it, that was Jesus, right? In John chapter 13, he got down, dressed like a servant, and started washing the disciples' feet. That's what a servant leader does. That's what a shepherd leader does, is they say, I'm just here to focus on you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna love you the best way that I can.
For us as leaders, servers, what's the one thing you've found to kind of get that person to engage in a better relationship with you? What did you have to do?
Well, you got to show up. You know, it can't be, and you have to show up regularly.
Consistency.
You have to show up with the servant attitude. Yeah. People can tell if you're just there to check your box.
Yep.
It's time for me to just walk through the office, you know, and I got to check that box. They can tell. It's the annual review. This is the time I got to sit down with you. Yeah. They know.
Yeah.
But when you're out there and you're saying, hey, you know, I want to get to know you. I want to figure out what your strengths are so that I can help you get into the best spot.
And they'll test us too.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. What about just, there's a quote about, you know, healthy relationships often there's including, you know, tough conversations, uncomfortable tension.
Yep.
But once you break through that quote is true.
Sure.
You know, if you're going to get a better relationship, you're going to have to dive in and get a little uncomfortable.
Right.
You might even have to eat crow. I've learned to eat that warm, by the way, roadkill. But what would you say would be your uncomfortable comment for people, like willing to put it out there? You as a leader, how did you do it?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's there really isn't any way to soften it.
Yeah.
But if people know that you have their best interest at heart,
what happens before
they can take it. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that, you know, like, again, I don't know who said this. I can't give somebody the credit. I'd like to give somebody the credit for this. Other people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So when you've demonstrated by the TIME,
right,
by the servant's attitude, by focusing on them, when they know that you're in it for them and not just to build your own pedigree, when you say, hey, listen, this, you might have a hard time accepting this, but listen, I got to address this with you because I see this as holding you back, and I don't want you to be held back. I want you to soar.
Right.
Then they'll receive it. And that's what one of the Proverbs says, that wounds from a friend can be trusted.
I love that word, yeah.
But an enemy only multiplies kisses. Somebody who doesn't care about you will just tell you everything about you is fine. They'll never confront you on anything. But somebody that loves you, they'll love you enough to tell you the truth, even if it might temporarily hurt your feelings.
Right.
Get you to, wait a minute. Oh, listen, hey, I've had to deal with the same thing in my own life, and I know how hard this is. I want to walk with you.
Right. As kind of wrapping it up, when you wrote this book, did you have any ahas about the 5 chapters where you're like, I had no idea I had that much unbundled? Kind of share with the audience, like in the writing process, like how did you know, other than the editor, but then you found out, well, it was easy to write it. I just stopped.
Right.
What would you say? What maybe the parting messages regarding that chapter on healthy relationships or getting yourself as healthy as you can be?
Sure. I think the big thing for me was real, like I said earlier about the jostling. Somebody bumps you and what comes out, because I've always wanted to excuse that, to say, well, they caught me at a bad time. I was really tired.
Yeah.
I had just had a really rough conversation over here, and then they walked in, and so of course my face was still like this, and I took it out on them, but they should have realized I wasn't taking it out on them. I was still mad about I try to make all these excuses. Right. I think that was one of my biggest takeaways in writing those things is saying, listen, I have to deal with me. I made that mistake, and I need to deal with that. So, and that's,
where can they get the book?
shepherdleadershipbook.com. So that's an easy place to get it. shepherdleadershipbook.com. But I actually want to talk about for just a second about maximizeleadership.com.
Oh, yeah.
Because Greg and I have got some great coaches. You're a pretty good coach too.
I try.
And I try to follow your example. But sometimes what you need is somebody to come alongside you and say, listen, we want to help you get better. And that's what our coaches do. Calling in a coach is not saying, I give up, I don't know how to do this. It's saying, I want to just get better at what I'm doing right now. I want to lead my organization farther. So here's what we've made it really simple. If you go to maximizeleadership.com and just scroll to the bottom of the page, you can see some information about our coaches. But the form at the bottom of the page is just a generic form. You type in there just whatever's on your mind. Say, I'm struggling with this. I'd like to get better here. Then we're going to read that and say, hey, we got a good idea. We got a good fit for a coach for you. And here's how we can do this. And we'll meet with you. We won't charge you anything to meet with you and talk about how we can set you up for success and the coach that we could match you up with. So that's what we want to do for you to help you get better, because we know when you get better, your team gets better. When your team gets better, you're going to release more leaders, and pretty soon we have a wholly changed society because it started with you. That's what we want to do in these episodes as well, is be able to share some ideas with you. So if you've got topic ideas, please get in touch with us. You can comment below on this video. On X, you can reach out to us at Maximize Podcast. Give us some thoughts there. We want to integrate those thoughts in other upcoming episodes so that we can resource you. So stay tuned, lean on us, come back to us again, and we want to be here to help you get better in your leadership.
Get in touch with Craig and Greg through Twitter at Maximize Podcast or at MaximizeLeadership.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of The Craig and Greg Show.